There's a white powder sitting on a shelf at your local hardware store right now. It costs less than $1. You sprinkle it onto a bathtub stain that has been sitting there for 30 years. You add warm water. You walk away and do something else entirely. When you come back, the stain is not faded. It is not lighter. It is not partially lifted or temporarily masked. It is completely, permanently, irrevocably gone. Yellow discoloration from decades of hard water. Dissolved. Dark rust rings left behind by old faucet drips, erased as if they were drawn in chalk. Calcium deposits so thick and stubborn that they survived every scrub brush, every commercial cleaner, every desperate late-night cleaning session you ever threw at them, vanished without a trace. The bathtub underneath looks like it just rolled off the factory floor, white, smooth, untouched. The original surface that has been buried under layers of mineral buildup for years, decades even, finally visible again. This powder has existed since 1882. It was never banned, never recalled, never classified as dangerous to the public, never pulled from shelves. It was never made illegal in any country on earth. It was not suppressed through legislation or hidden through government secrecy. It was buried in a far more ordinary, far more profitable, and far more deliberate way. It was buried under an avalanche of brightly colored $15 spray bottles, bottles that come wrapped in celebrity endorsements and scientific-sounding names and bold promises printed across every inch of their packaging, bottles that promise miracles and deliver temporary results at best, and nothing at all at worst. Because a powder that permanently fixes the problem with a single application cannot generate repeat sales, and what cannot generate repeat sales cannot sustain a $200 billion industry. And what cannot sustain a $200 billion industry gets moved to the bottom shelf, stripped of its advertising budget, and quietly forgotten by the people who profit most from you never discovering it. This is the story of the $1 powder that the entire cleaning industry has prayed for over a century that you would never find. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If these stories matter to you, if this kind of buried knowledge belongs in your hands and not locked in a corporate vault, the bell and the subscribe button are the single best way to make sure you never miss what we uncover next. This channel exists to crack open the vaults that industry locked shut. And this vault today is one of the most important ones we have ever opened. The year was 1776. Not in Philadelphia, where the Founding Fathers were busy signing declarations and making history. In Uppsala, Sweden, in a cramped laboratory tucked behind a small apothecary shop, a pharmaceutical chemist named Carl Wilhelm Scheele was doing something far quieter and far less celebrated. Scheele was not a wealthy man. He was not a tenured professor with a university salary and state-of-the-art equipment. He was a pharmacy clerk, a man of modest means who conducted experiments after working hours, using borrowed equipment, second-hand chemicals, and the kind of relentless curiosity that cannot be suppressed by poverty or obscurity. That evening, he was boiling sorrel leaves, reducing the liquid slowly over heat until white crystals began forming at the bottom of his flask. He tasted them carefully, the way chemists routinely did in that era before toxicology was a formal discipline, and noted a sharp, intensely sour flavor unlike anything he had documented before. He had just isolated a compound that the scientific world would eventually name oxalic acid. Scheele spent considerable time documenting this substance's remarkable and unusual properties, specifically its extraordinary ability to dissolve mineral deposits, rust stains, and metal tarnish on contact. He published his findings through the proper academic channels. He submitted his papers. He documented everything with the meticulous care of a man who believed the scientific community would recognize what he had found. The scientific community largely ignored him. Scheele died 10 years later, at the age of 43, almost certainly poisoned by the very chemicals he had spent his entire adult life studying, a fate tragically common among experimental chemists of that century. His discovery of oxalic acid was filed away in dusty academic journals written in Latin and Swedish, accessible only to a tiny circle of European scholars, invisible to the rest of the world. For over a century, almost nobody outside of university chemistry departments had the faintest idea what Carl Wilhelm Scheele had found on that quiet evening in Uppsala. Then, in 1882, something happened in Indianapolis, Indiana, and unlike Scheele's deliberate experimentation, this discovery was completely, almost comically, accidental. A chemist named George William Hoffman was cooking a pot of rhubarb for dinner. When he finished and lifted the pot from the stove, he noticed something that stopped him in his tracks. Something that should have been impossible. The pot had been tarnished for years, blackened with layered mineral deposits and grease stains so entrenched that no amount of scrubbing had ever made a meaningful difference. But after cooking rhubarb in it, the pot was gleaming, not polished, not improved, gleaming, as if it had just been purchased from a shop window. Hoffman was not just any cook standing over a stove. He was a manufacturing chemist who already produced and sold cleaning products across the American Midwest. He understood chemistry the way a surgeon understands anatomy. He knew immediately and without question that something in that rhubarb contained an active compound capable of extraordinary things. He isolated it through careful analysis. It was oxalic acid, the exact same compound that Carl Wilhelm Scheele had crystallized from sorrel leaves in Uppsala more than a century earlier, documented in a journal that almost no one had ever read. Hoffman did not file the discovery away. He built something with it. He formulated a cleaning powder built around this acid and began selling it in plain brown paper bags to taverns and saloons across Indianapolis. Barkeepers, men who needed to keep brass rails gleaming, copper kettles polished, and iron stovetops spotless under the scrutiny of hundreds of customers every single night, found that this powder did what nothing else had ever done. It worked. Not eventually. Not partially. Immediately and completely. Word spread from saloon to saloon, from city to city, from region to region, the way truly useful things spread before advertising existed, through the honest testimony of people who had seen something work with their own eyes. He named the product after his most devoted early customers, Barkeeper's Friend. By the turn of the century, this powder was stocked in hardware stores stretching from New York Harbor to the coast of San Francisco. More than 140 years later, the exact same formula is still being manufactured in Indianapolis, Indiana. The same oxalic acid, the same underlying chemical mechanism, the same results. Nothing about the core chemistry has changed in over a century because nothing needed to change. The powder worked perfectly in 1882. It still works perfectly today. The science was complete. The formula was finished. The problem was solved. And that precisely is where the trouble begins. But before we go deeper, I need to tell you something important. This video is just the surface layer. Everything you are hearing right now barely scratches what I have assembled inside the complete forbidden camping vault. Inside that vault are restoration techniques that the automotive industry has deliberately classified as professional use only, methods that cost pennies when you know what you're doing. Wood preservation formulas that genuinely outperform $100 commercial sealants, built from ingredients sitting in your pantry right now. Emergency water purification systems that trained engineers, field-tested and could not believe had not been mainstream for decades. Pest elimination formulas that cost a few cents per application and replace entire exterminator contracts. DIY home repair methods that licensed building contractors charge thousands of dollars to perform, documented step by step for anyone willing to read them. Over 10 complete guides, collected in one place with zero fluff and nothing held back. The link is in the description below, but stay here, because this video is just getting started, and what comes next is the part that will make you look at your cleaning cabinet very differently. Let me show you exactly why this powder systematically embarrasses every product on the modern cleaning aisle, at a molecular level, in terms that cannot be argued or marketed away. When oxalic acid makes contact with a rust stain, a specific and irreversible chemical reaction occurs. The iron oxide, which is what rust fundamentally is at a molecular level, encounters the oxalate ions released by the dissolved acid. These ions bond aggressively with the iron in the rust compound. This creates an entirely new substance called iron oxalate, which carries a critical and enormously useful property. It is completely and fully water-soluble. It dissolves on contact with water and rinses away clean, leaving the surface beneath it entirely untouched and chemically neutral. The stain does not get pushed around the surface. It does not get masked underneath a white residue that makes things look clean until the next shower. It does not get temporarily lifted and then gradually redeposited. It gets chemically disassembled at the molecular level. The iron oxide ceases to exist as iron oxide. It is converted into something else entirely, something that water washes away without resistance. This is a fundamentally and completely different process from what virtually every commercial bathroom cleaner on retail shelves actually does. Most spray bottles in the cleaning aisle rely on surfactants, soap molecules essentially, engineered to be slightly more aggressive than standard dish soap. Surfactants work by surrounding particles of surface grime and floating them away in the rinse water. And for loose surface dirt, for freshly deposited grime that has not yet bonded to anything, this approach is adequate, satisfactory. It gets the visible surface clean. But mineral deposits, rust rings, calcium scale, and hard water stains are not loose surface grime. They are not floating on top of your porcelain waiting to be scooped up by a soap molecule. They are chemically bonded to the surface material, to the porcelain, to the enamel, to the fiberglass, at a molecular level. These bonds are strong. They are the same type of mineral bonding that holds limestone formations together. Soap cannot break those bonds. No surfactant, regardless of how aggressively it is marketed, can break those bonds. No amount of physical scrubbing with any brush ever manufactured can break those bonds. The only thing that can dissolve them is a targeted chemical reaction that specifically attacks the mineral compounds themselves. Oxalic acid does exactly and exclusively that. Independent research on chelation chemistry, the process by which certain molecules bind to metal ions, confirms that oxalic acid binds with calcium, iron, and magnesium ions more aggressively and more completely than any common household surfactant ever formulated. The mechanism is not brute force. It is precision chemistry, and it works on porcelain, on enamel, on fiberglass, on ceramic tile, on stainless steel, and on glass, without damaging or degrading the underlying surface in any way. This is the fundamental, irrefutable reason why a single application of a $1 powder accomplishes what 50 bottles of bathroom spray cannot accomplish in 50 attempts spread across 50 weeks. Now let the numbers tell the complete story. A standard bottle of brand name bathroom cleaner costs somewhere between $8 and $15 at any major supermarket. The average American household purchases between 6 and 12 bottles of bathroom cleaning products over the course of a single year. That translates to somewhere between $70 and $180 spent annually on products that manage the surface appearance of stains without ever chemically resolving them. The stain returns, the bottle empties, another bottle is purchased. The cycle never ends because it was never designed to end. Over a single decade, one average household spends somewhere between $700 and $1,800 on bathroom cleaners alone, not on cleaning supplies in general. On bathroom cleaning products specifically, money spent on a category of product engineered at a foundational business level to be permanently necessary. A single container of oxalic acid powder, priced between $1 and $3 at any hardware store, contains enough material for dozens of individual applications. A single container used with reasonable care will last the average household an entire year, potentially longer. The cost per application, when you calculate it honestly, is measured in pennies, not in dollars, not in tens of dollars. But the economic damage does not stop at the cleaning aisle. When stains accumulate so deeply over so many years that spray bottles genuinely cannot touch them anymore, and this point arrives eventually in every bathroom where the right chemistry was never used, homeowners pick up the phone and call a professional. The bathtub reglazing industry in the United States charges between $300 and $600 for a single refinishing appointment. Bathtub replacement, full removal and installation of a new unit starts at $1,500 and can exceed $8,000 when you account for plumbing modifications, surrounding tile work, and professional labor. Every single dollar of that expense, in the vast majority of cases, could have been prevented entirely by a powder that costs less than a cup of coffee and takes less than 30 minutes to apply. Let that sit with you for a moment. And this is exactly the point in the story where it stops being a simple tale about chemistry and starts being something darker. If you have made it this far into this video, you already understand more about the actual chemistry of bathroom cleaning than 99% of homeowners currently alive. That knowledge has real financial value. Subscribe, share this video with someone you know who is still pouring money into products designed to fail them, and visit the Vault link in the description for everything else that industry has tried to keep from reaching your hands. Now, stay with me, because what comes next is the heaviest part. Here is the question that, if asked honestly in a corporate boardroom, would produce a very uncomfortable silence. If a powder costing less than $1 permanently eliminates every category of bathtub stain, rust, calcium, hard water, mineral buildup, decades of accumulated discoloration, why does the cleaning aisle in your supermarket stretch for 50 feet in every direction? The global household cleaning products market generates more than $200 billion in total revenue every single year. Surface cleaners alone account for more than $68 billion of that total. Bathroom cleaning products specifically represent one of the fastest growing individual segments within the entire industry, year over year, in every major developed market on Earth. Companies like Procter & Gamble, Reckitt, Henkel, Clorox, and SC Johnson dominate shelf space across every major retail chain on the continent. Their combined advertising budgets run into the billions of dollars annually. Their product development pipelines produce new variants and reformulations constantly. New scents, new spray mechanisms, new formulations with new names and new packaging every single season. Their entire business model rests on a single foundational principle without which none of it functions: repeat purchase. Every product on that shelf, without exception, without a single meaningful exemption, is engineered to manage your problem rather than solve it. Not because the chemists who formulate these products are incompetent. They are not. Not because no one within these corporations understands chelation chemistry or knows what oxalic acid does. They absolutely do. But because a product that genuinely eliminates the stain permanently, that makes itself unnecessary after one application, is a product that generates exactly one sale per household and never another. A spray bottle that removes surface grime today and leaves the underlying mineral bond completely intact ensures that you return to the cleaning aisle next month. A foaming gel that temporarily whitens the visual appearance of your tub while leaving the chemical architecture of the stain untouched guarantees that you are back in that aisle within weeks, reaching for the same product, or a slightly reformulated version of it with updated packaging. This is not a side effect of the business model. It is the business model. It is the entire point. Oxalic acid does not fit into this model. It cannot be made to fit into this model. You cannot build a subscription program around a powder that makes itself unnecessary. You cannot engineer brand loyalty to a product that solves the problem permanently and then sits unused in your cabinet for months. You cannot justify charging $15 for a spray bottle when a consumer who discovers the alternative is paying less than $1 for a result that is measurably, demonstrably, chemically superior in every category that matters. So what does an industry worth $200 billion do when it encounters a product that threatens the foundational logic of its existence? It does not ban it. A ban would create exactly the kind of controversy and public curiosity that is the last thing it wants. It does not attack it directly, because direct attacks require acknowledging the product exists. It does something far more effective, far more economical, and far more durable than any legislative fight could ever be. It ignores it, completely, systematically. By design, it floods every available inch of retail shelf space with hundreds of competing products, each wrapped in aggressive packaging, celebrity-associated marketing, and formulations with clinical-sounding ingredient names that most consumers will never research. It spends billions of advertising dollars training the public, over generations, to believe that bathroom cleaning is an ongoing weekly ritual that requires specialized branded products developed by professional chemists in laboratory settings. It makes the cleaning aisle so crowded, so loud, so overwhelming, so aggressively marketed that a plain white container of oxalic acid powder sitting quietly on a bottom shelf in the paint department, 2 aisles away, becomes effectively invisible to the average shopper. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not speculation. This is shelf placement economics. This is marketing resource allocation. This is the entirely rational, entirely legal, entirely deliberate consequence of how large-scale consumer product industries manage the information landscape around them. A $2 product that solves the problem once generates $2 of total lifetime revenue per customer forever. A $15 spray bottle that requires replacement every 3 to 4 weeks generates hundreds of dollars per customer over a single decade with no upper limit in sight. The math is not complicated. The incentive structure is not hidden. The result, an entire generation of homeowners who have never heard the words oxalic acid in the context of cleaning their bathroom, is not an accident. Meanwhile, the people who actually get paid to clean things for a living have known about this powder for decades. Hotel housekeeping departments across the hospitality industry use oxalic acid solutions to restore bathtubs between guests. Not because they discovered some secret, but because at commercial scale you cannot afford to use products that do not work. Marine restoration professionals use it to strip decades of mineral deposits from fiberglass boat hulls in a fraction of the time any alternative would require. Woodworkers have used it for generations to bleach out deep water stains and restore aged lumber to its original unstained color. Industrial cleaning operations purchase it in 55-pound bulk bags, because at that scale, there is no room for products that manage problems instead of solving them. The professionals who clean for a living know. The corporations who profit from you not knowing know. The only people in this entire equation who are deliberately, systematically, and profitably kept uninformed are the people standing in the cleaning aisle, reaching for a $15 bottle, wondering why their bathtub never actually looks clean. That is the part that should make you genuinely angry. Here is exactly what you do about it, in precise detail, with nothing left out. Go to any hardware store in your area, walk past the cleaning aisle completely, do not even glance at it. Walk instead to the paint section, or the wood restoration area, or the deck and fence treatment section. Look for a container labeled oxalic acid powder, or sometimes sold under the name wood bleach. The price will be somewhere between $1 and $3. That is the product. That is what you are looking for. Take it home. Put on rubber gloves before you touch anything. Put on safety glasses or protective eyewear. This is an acid. A mild one by industrial standards, but an acid nonetheless, and it deserves the same basic respect you would give any chemical tool. Proper protective gear is not optional and is not something to skip in the interest of convenience. In a plastic bucket, not metal, always plastic, measure 2 level tablespoons of the powder and add it to 1 quart of warm water. Stir the mixture slowly and patiently until every grain of powder has dissolved completely into the water. The solution will be clear and slightly thinner than plain water. Make sure your bathroom is well ventilated before you proceed. Open the window if there is one. Turn on the exhaust fan. Fresh air movement during application is important. Apply the solution to every stained surface of your bathtub using a sponge, a clean cloth, or a standard spray bottle if you have one available. Work methodically across the entire surface, making sure every discolored area is thoroughly saturated. Then step back, set a timer. Let the solution sit undisturbed for between 10 and 20 minutes. For stains that have been building for decades, the truly entrenched, seemingly immovable kind, you can extend the treatment time to 30 minutes without issue. Here is the most important instruction in this entire process, and the one most people have the hardest time following. Do not scrub. Do nothing. Walk away. The chemistry is doing the work for you at a molecular level that your hands cannot reach with any brush or sponge ever made. The oxalic acid is actively disassembling the mineral bonds in the stain while you wait. Physical scrubbing during this period adds nothing and risks scratching surfaces that don't need scratching. After the treatment period ends, rinse the entire bathtub surface thoroughly and completely with clean running water. Make sure every trace of the solution is flushed away before you look at the results. Then look at your bathtub. The yellow is gone. The rust rings are gone. The calcium scale that survived years of scrubbing is gone. The hard water mineral shadow that made your tub look perpetually dirty, regardless of how often you cleaned it, gone. What you are seeing is the original porcelain or enamel surface that has been buried under those layers of mineral accumulation for years, possibly for the entire time you have lived in your home. It is clean. Not cleaner. Clean. For stains so deep and so long established that even one application does not fully resolve them, mix a slightly stronger solution, 3 level tablespoons of powder per quart of warm water, and repeat the entire process. In virtually every case that has ever been documented by professional cleaning technicians, 2 applications are sufficient to restore a bathtub that most homeowners had written off entirely and assumed would require professional reglazing. After the final treatment, rinse the surface one more time thoroughly and dry it with a clean towel. Your bathtub is now in the cleanest condition it has been in since the day it was installed in your home. Total material cost, less than $1. Total time investment, less than 30 minutes. Total physical effort required, effectively 0. One critical note, and I'm giving this to you without qualification or softening because it matters. Oxalic acid is a genuinely effective tool, and like every genuinely effective tool, it requires honest respect and proper handling. Always wear rubber gloves, no exceptions. Always protect your eyes. Never mix oxalic acid with bleach or with any other cleaning chemical under any circumstances, because the resulting reactions can be dangerous. Keep the container secured and away from children and pets at all times. Store it in its original labeled container, so there is never any ambiguity about what it contains. Rinse treated surfaces completely and thoroughly after every application without exception. These instructions are not excessive caution. They are the basic terms under which this tool works safely. Follow them every time without shortcutting. Your grandparents knew about this powder, not because they were chemists, not because they had access to information that you do not have access to today, but because their generation lived before the cleaning aisle existed in its current form, before a 50-foot wall of branded products spent billions of dollars annually to replace the practical household knowledge that had been passed down quietly for generations. Their generation had a tin of powder under the sink. Their bathtubs were spotless. The knowledge was ordinary. The solution was cheap. The results were reliable. Then the industry grew. The advertising budgets expanded. The retail shelf space multiplied. The marketing language became more sophisticated. And a simple, permanent $1 solution was systematically and profitably moved to a different aisle, stripped of visibility and quietly buried under an empire of products specifically engineered to require perpetual repurchase. The powder did not disappear from hardware stores because it stopped working. It did not disappear because something better replaced it. It disappeared from public consciousness because it worked too well. Too permanently, too cheaply, too completely, to survive inside a business model that depends on a problem never actually being solved. The cleaning industry's single worst nightmare is a product that makes itself unnecessary. Oxalic acid powder has been that nightmare since 1882, and it is still there, still on the shelf, still costs less than $1, still performs in 20 minutes what an entire aisle of products cannot accomplish in 20 years of weekly application. The science has not changed. The chemistry has not expired or been superseded. The formula has not stopped working. They simply stopped telling you about it, and they counted on you never finding out on your own. You just found out. If this video opened something for you, if this is the kind of knowledge that belongs in your hands and not buried in a corporate marketing decision, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every share preserves something that industry tried to quietly erase from collective memory. Every subscription keeps this vault open for the next person who is exhausted from spending money on products designed to fail them on purpose. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside it is heavier than anything we have opened yet.